Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'd now like to introduce our two presenters today. First, we have John Fruehe, Senior Analyst of Networking and Servers at Moor Insights and Strategy. John has over 2 decades of experience. His combined background of sales and marketing, along with the time spent in the aisles of some of the world's largest data centers, provides John with a holistic view of the entire consumer process, from decision-making to deployment. Today, John will be kicking things off by sharing his vast knowledge around the imminent changes in the networking space and the open opportunity for much-needed change in today's Wi-Fi. Following will be Rick Wilmer, the CEO of Mojo Networks. Rick has over 25 years of experience in Silicon Valley in storage and networking. At Mojo Networks, his primary focus is propelling the company to our next phase of rapid growth and development. Today, Rick will be showing you exactly how he's achieving this with our revolutionary new business model, which provides our users with a cost savings of more than 50% and lays the foundation for an open standard in networking. And without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor to John.
Thank you, Erica. First, I think we should really look at what some of the changes are that are happening in the world of networking. And really, for the last 25 years, everything has remained pretty consistent. There hasn't been a ton of innovation. There have been changes that have been relatively incremental that have come along, but networking is the one area that's really holding customers back. The thing I hear all the time from customers is, hey, I can deploy a server in minutes now with VMware or some of the other virtualization tools, but it still takes me weeks, if not months, to actually get all the networking and security laid out. And so the provisioning of networking and security is the thing that's holding all these companies back. A lot of times businesses want to take advantage of new opportunities, but by the time they can finally marshal the resources and get things going, the opportunity's already passed. They've got to be able to move faster, and network is the thing that typically is holding them back. Now, a lot of customers are looking at software-defined networking as a way to address this. They see software-defined networking as the first opportunity in the last 25 years for things to really change. But beyond software-defined networking, there are other things that are also happening in the data center, and you're going to see a lot of change coming in the upcoming years. Wi-Fi is one of those areas that, along with all the other changes, we're seeing a lot of interest happening. Wi-Fi has been fairly stagnant, just as traditional networking has been. You continually get increases in bandwidth, increases in throughput as you move to the next standard, but take a serious look at what's running out in your data, running out in your campuses today. You're going to find that a lot of the Wi-Fi that's out there still, when I go visit customers, I'm most likely connecting on an N access point. I've even connected on G access points. We've got AC out there, and AC Wave 2 is starting to get deployed, but a lot of people still are not upgrading to the latest Wi-Fi. There's been a lot of challenges, but ultimately, one of the best ways to drive more productivity out of your teams is to address the Wi-Fi out on the campus. Client computing is really changed, and this is the opportunity for Wi-Fi. In about 2008, we finally saw that shift where desktops became less popular and notebooks actually surpassed desktops in shipments. And more interestingly to that was you had smartphones and you had tablets then hitting the scene. So combine smartphones, tablets, and notebooks, and you see that mobility is the key factor for employees today. They're no longer tied to their desks. They're really out and around, moving around the company, moving around the business, or moving around in the field, and they need Wi-Fi capabilities. Customers want to be able to easily and seamlessly deploy Wi-Fi. As it's becoming a bigger part of what's happening in the campus, it's got to become much easier to work with. Additionally, especially if you've got retail locations, Wi-Fi is an opportunity to engage with customers. Let your customers use Wi-Fi. Use Wi-Fi in a retail environment to be able to discern some insight into what's happening. So if you look at where most customers are today, there's a big opportunity for them to change what they're doing and get more out of their business by rethinking their Wi-Fi. Once we start to drive different behaviors within Wi-Fi and start to drive some consolidation, you can actually get more value out of it. Because Wi-Fi is not just about user access. The management tools now are giving us so much more data about what's happening with the business, things that are happening with our customers, things that are happening with our own employees. There's a lot of opportunity to glean insight out of that data and be able to figure out what's going on with your business and be able to drive better overall experience for both your customers and your employees. We're seeing a lot happen with cloud-driven controllers. Now, as that control plane starts to move out of the data center and maybe move into the cloud, you've got an opportunity, because a lot of analytics are also happening there, to be able to pull all this data. We're getting far more information out of Wi-Fi systems than we have been in the past. As a matter of fact, I'd be willing to bet that everybody here is probably getting a base level of Wi-Fi information, probably about connection, how many users you've got, but you're not really utilizing that. And a lot of the tools that are out there that can give you even better insight from some of the new technologies aren't even being deployed yet. And so there's an opportunity again to really move to these tools, utilize things like big data to do more analysis of what's going on. Now, a lot of what's got to happen is some standardization around the controllers. We need more standards. We need to make it easier for customers to deploy all this, because continually revving to new versions and new levels of Wi-Fi capability, but causing a rip and replace every time that happens just makes it too difficult and onerous for businesses. So you can make better business decisions, but you've got to be able to actually deploy those technologies. So where does all this leave us? As a business, you've got to know how to move your business forward. You've got to be able to move faster and not be held back. One of the best ways to do that is to look at your IT infrastructure, and most importantly, look at your networking. Wi-Fi is a huge component of networking. It's become more and more important as we're seeing the client devices shifting away from the traditional wired and more towards the wireless. IT needs to take the lead on this and rethink Wi-Fi in terms of what can it deliver in value for the company. Not just in access, but again, what can it deliver in engagement? What can it deliver to the bottom line? This is a good time, and right now we've got a good inflection point. As I said before, 802.11ac Wave 2 is starting to come out. There's a lot of people still running on N. So there's an opportunity to move, get out of just a 2.4 gigahertz range and start to deploy both 2.4 and 5 so you can do a better job of segmenting traffic, better job of shaping traffic, more capabilities to be able to deal with growth. There's a lot of transformation happening in IT, and Wi-Fi is a good opportunity to clean up a lot of the things that have been happening in the past and really get yourself on a better footing. But the opportunity for savings is there. You'll find out as we hear from Rick in a minute about what Mojo's doing to change that. The most important thing to remember is you don't want to get locked in. And so you want to make sure you're picking a partner who's got a strategy that's going to be as open as possible, because as these technologies change, you want to make sure that you're there and that you've got something that's going to take you into the future.
Great. Thank you, John. I'm now going to pass the floor to Rick, who's going to talk about our brand new business model.
Thanks, John and Erica. Appreciate the introduction. So this is the headline in the press release that we issued on April 28th. We launched what we call a radical new business model for enterprise Wi-Fi that will disrupt the economics of the industry. And the secondary headline there, after success with Global 2000, we've extended this model to all of our customers, is an important statement. We had actually been running this business model with a couple of very large customers for almost a year now, and found great success with it, and watched these very large customers enjoy radical cost reductions on access points that no other customer in the market that we served could enjoy. And as we watched these business models evolve successfully, we came up with a way to deliver this model of cost reduction to the entire market. So the key message in that press release is pretty straightforward. I'll say it again. We're making all of our state-of-the-art Wave 1 and Wave 2 access points available to the market with no hardware markup. We are no longer making any money on access points. We are no longer charging a profit on top of what we pay for an access point. We believe this is the right thing for the customer, and we believe this is inevitable. And I'll talk about why we believe this is inevitable as we go through the slide deck. And again, to reiterate, this is a very bold move that we've made as a company. We used to make a lot of money on access points, and we've given that all up. We're passing that all through to the market. No profit for us, no margin. We're flowing everything through to the channel partners at the same price we pay to our supply chain. And as you'll see in the upcoming slides, it equates to a lot of dollars. So, in terms of actual dollars, this is a look at some of the competitive Wave 2 offerings that have been announced and put into the market. And when I look at those list prices up on the top line, I cringe. Believe me, I know what a Wave 2 AP costs, because we procure Wave 2 APs and make those available to our customers. And I can tell you at those list prices, those are 10 to 15x the actual cost of those Wave 2 APs, maybe even more. Some of those big competitors listed on this chart clearly have more economic buying power than Mojo does. And with their leverage, I'm guessing that it may even be a bigger markup than 10 to 15x. At a 50% discount off list, that means 85% margins to the Wi-Fi vendor. At 75% off list, the margins remain above 70%. In our opinion, that is not justified, especially based on the way value is created in an access point today, and it's quite frankly a ripoff, and we're out to change that. The other thing you'll notice, if you look at this chart, is not only does our lower list price, is our list price substantially lower than all the competitors, and we offer very similar discounts to our channel and our end customers, but that price also includes the management platform, which is not the case with any of our other competitors. You're going to pay extra for a controller or cloud service. Our price includes lifetime support. We don't charge 15% of list or 10% of list to provide the luxury of calling our support function and getting help with a technical issue, or having the opportunity to return a product that doesn't work or has a problem or wasn't right for a customer's use case. It also includes a lifetime hardware warranty. And this is very novel because it requires no RMA process. Two questions. Why hasn't this happened before? And John alluded to this. And the reason, or the answer to that question, is because networking vendors have done a great job of proliferating proprietary solutions. And proprietary is not good for customers. It means vendor lock-in, which means less choice. It means limited agility and flexibility, and it means restricted negotiating power. These are all bad things for customers. However, it does mean great margins for the networking vendors. And that is the reason that they have proliferated proprietary solutions. And we do not believe that is the future, and we are trying to break that model. And I'll explain how this pricing strategy will lead ultimately to breaking this model. So, why has this been tolerated? Well, it's because there is no alternatives. Customers, if they wanted networking, this is what they had to work with. Proprietary vendor locked-in expensive solutions where networking vendors made a fortune on their back. But that's changing big time. And John alluded to some of these trends in his talk. And software-defined networking and NFV, network function virtualization, are clearly strong trends in our industry enforcing a separation of hardware and software. We've seen this happen in the data center in a big way with white label switches where you procure your hardware separately from your software. We've also seen this happen in a big way in data centers with servers, with the advent of open compute and open hardware standards for servers, which you can now buy with no OS and choose the OS that best suits your needs for your data center. These are very powerful trends in our industry, and they are going to proliferate across all of networking. And our role is to bring this type of open standard and innovation to Wi-Fi. And in the last bullet on this side, you'll notice I say hardware would become open source and commoditized. What I did not say is access points. Access points are comprised of hardware and software. The hardware is what needs to be commoditized. It's what needs to be flowed through to the market essentially at cost, where the software is unique from vendor to vendor and brings a lot of value and functionality. But if we can get to an open standard on hardware and then let customers choose what's the best open standard hardware at the lowest price or the best price for them, along with their preferred software solution, you are going to see a much better economic model for our customers and for the industry. So we're giving up 70% margins on access points. This is a bold move for our company. When we started to talk about this idea internally, it would have been real interesting for some of you to attend a Mojo board meeting and watch our board members react to this strategy. But clearly, everybody got on the same page and we've made the move. And we believe it's inevitable. There's no question this is ultimately going to happen. Again, with open compute and the effect that that's had on the data center, both in compute and storage and networking, this is, again, inevitable. We're seeing a trend with the separation of hardware and software, where hardware is becoming commoditized. It's being delivered without software, and the customer is being allowed to choose the best software solution for them. And that's essentially what Mojo delivers. So we fully embrace this trend, and we're trying to bring it out of the data center into other areas of the network, specifically Wi-Fi. So how does this pricing strategy actually result in an open hardware standard? Well, today, there's a lot of standardization in Wi-Fi and with access points. Over the air, you're standardized through the 802.11 standards, and the interface back to the wired network is standardized via Internet Protocol. What's not been standardized is the interface to the management system. And one bad apple spoils the whole batch. So if you have one element of a Wi-Fi system that's not standardized, you have no standardization and you remain proprietary. So that's the lay of the land today. And today Mojo has got a proprietary interface to its management system. But again, the pricing strategy is going to lead to an open standard, an open hardware standard. So let's connect that dot. How does this really lead to an open hardware standard? Well, with no profit, no margin on access points, we've put ourselves in a position where, quite frankly, we don't care what access points our customers use. We would like our customers to use the very best access point for their particular use case. Whether that's a Mojo access point or some other access point, we quite frankly don't care. If we don't care what access points our customers use, as long as they get the very best access point for their use case, we put ourselves in a position where we're now open to work with competitors, with chipset vendors, with other providers in the industry to allow other APs to work with our management system. And I would openly invite any of our competitors to get in touch with us and have a conversation about this. And that is what creates this pricing strategy, creates the economic environment from which an open standard can be born. If there is no longer a vested interest from the Wi-Fi vendor community to keep their solutions or their access points proprietary, because there's no profit left at access points, you now have got the right conditions for an open standard to be born. Okay? And I want to reiterate that low cost does not mean low quality or cheap. It does not mean lack of innovation. All we're talking about is standardizing hardware. So access points can interoperate amongst vendors. So a customer that wants to upgrade the management system for his Wi-Fi network, but just installed, thousands of Wave 1 APs a year ago, and today would be faced with ripping out all those APs if they wanted to change the management system. We want to do away with those headaches and those bad conditions that customers face. Imagine if you wanted to migrate from a controller-based management system to a cloud-based management system, and you didn't have to rip out all the access points to make that change. That would be clearly a huge benefit for the market. And that's the kind of benefit that an open standard would lead to. It would lead to a much broader selection of access points for the customer base. It would allow the vendors to focus on software innovation and RF performance and Wi-Fi performance, and reduce the cost to the customer base and allow upgrades to various parts of the network without a full-blown rip and replace being required. This is why open standards have been driven into the data center through open compute and initiatives like that. This, again, is clearly a trend that's coming in our industry, and we want to lead that trend, and we obviously embrace that trend. So as I mentioned before, we have an open invitation to any competitor that would like to work with us to get their access points certified to work with our cloud management platform. And if we get traction on that, this again is the beginning of an open standard for access point hardware. So in summary, as John mentioned, we're seeing our customer base demand more choice. They don't want vendor lock-in. They don't want to have to rip and replace access points if they want to change the management system. They want to be more flexible. They want to be able to be more agile, to be able to modify Wi-Fi networks to respond to new business opportunity, and clearly everybody wants lower costs. Separating hardware from software and moving software to the cloud is the future. There's no question that cloud managed networks are the way of the future. When you look at the growth in our industry, it's almost exclusively being driven by cloud-managed solutions. The value proposition for cloud when it comes to managing a Wi-Fi network is overwhelmingly compelling. And if you move all the management to the cloud and eliminate the profit for the Wi-Fi vendors on access points and create that environment that I've talked about, we can get to a world where access points are open standards based, where the hardware is open standards based, and they all interoperate amongst vendors. Think of this like light bulbs. I can go to Home Depot and buy a $25 high-end super cool LED light bulb, or I can go buy a $2 incandescent light bulb. I can buy whatever light bulb is best for my home and what I want, and that light bulb is going to screw into my light socket. It's going to produce light, regardless of the vendor that produced that light bulb and regardless of the place where I bought it. That is what we're pushing for, and this pricing strategy, while bringing tremendous value to the market, more importantly starts to create the environment to let this kind of open standards discussion begin and ultimately come to fruition. So this is what we deliver. I appreciate your time and attendance. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the presentations, John and Rick. Let's see. I have, this question might be for John. Earlier you were talking about some of the different Wi-Fi options, and someone had asked, what about 802.11ad now coming out? Is that something you're seeing?
Well, where we see most of the people right now, they've made the progression. I think there's still a lot of people on 802.11n. There are an opportunity to move to AC. A lot of the people didn't move to AC initially because N gave them the bandwidth and controllers weren't there inside the devices. But now practically every device has AC, and you're seeing a lot of people either looking at moving from N to AC, or more likely moving from N to AC Wave 2, because they see Wave 2 as an opportunity to jump ahead. There's a continual pipeline of new standards coming, like the one that you mentioned, that are just going to continue down the road, and the throughput and bandwidth is going to continue to increase, and that's why even if you're not seeing a lot of Wave 2 capability out in the field, if you're deploying Wave 2 makes a lot of sense because it gets you ahead of the curve. As you know, standards are going to continue to change.
Great, thank you very much, John. Let's see, a couple questions in here. Actually, this question is coming from Dan McGregor. What is the performance in relation to Cisco and Ruckus? And actually, Dan, we have a webinar that we're going to be announcing in the next couple of days that's going to talk about our C120 Wave 2 performance. So it's a performance review. We'll just make sure everyone's aware of that. We can talk about that on another webinar. And how can you get trials of Wave 2 access points? Again, send us an email to myref@mojonetworks.com if you're not eligible for an access point, a free access point at this time. And we have a question here around a lot of hardware changes. What changes do we have in developments coming, Rick, do we have in terms of our cloud portal and our management dashboard?
We have some big changes coming on our cloud platform, really exciting stuff. We have a very packed full product roadmap that's going to be delivered over the course of this calendar year with a whole bunch of critical features coming out. Many of those targeted at larger enterprise, large campus, places where controllers have dominated the market. We are now developing our cloud solution to be a real alternative from a feature completeness standpoint and from a network design standpoint for those types of deployments. We also have a series of Wave 2 access points that will be coming. We've announced the C120, and back on the performance question, we've got a lot of internal data that, again, Erica mentioned will be shared in an upcoming webinar, but I can tell you the performance is outstanding on that AP. But we've got at least 2 more Wave 2 access points that are significantly different than the C120 that we've announced that can provide some real value for different types of use cases. We also have a pretty significant project underway to take a look at our user interface and our console and really craft that to align better with how network administrators think about Wi-Fi and what they want to see when they're looking at a Wi-Fi network. So a lot of exciting innovation coming around our UI. And with cloud management, the ability to visualize the network, to understand what's happened historically and use that data to predict what might happen in the future and automate remediation of bad things before they even happen is all possible when you've got a cloud platform. You can store so much data in the cloud and analyze that data and visualize that data and use it to predict and prevent future events. It's quite powerful, and this is a lot of what's in our roadmap this year that will become evident to a user through our revised UI.
And thank you, John and Rick, for taking time out of your busy day to present for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.